Back on the record on State versus Loyd. He's present with his attorney. State Attorney's Office is present. You can bring the jury in. For the record, the witness remained on the stand throughout the break. State recognized presence of the jury.
We do, Your Honor.
Defense? All right, Mr. Linneman, you may cross. It's on. I haven't turned it off, so. Yes, you may.
Thank
The
you.
attorneys are free to move around to see exhibits while it's going on. Mr. Buxman, did you disconnect it by any chance? Did either you or Mr. Williams disconnect this? Okay. There we go.
Judge, apparently, maybe
What's wrong?
it's not working.
I didn't turn it off, so I haven't touched it. I didn't do anything to it between the state's presentation and y'all's. Can we get AV up? Can we get AV up here, please? I don't know why it's not.
Oh,
There you go.
Here we
Never
go.
mind.
It's on.
All right.
It's off.
I don't believe it's our connection. It has something to do with whatever you're doing over there. There you go. All right. It turned itself back on.
Yeah, stay on. Judge, I'm going to switch computers out. Judge, I can take this off, right?
Take what off? Don't tear it, just flip it back.
All right. Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
You would agree with me that someone should always be concerned if there's a conflict between a police detective, police department, and a defendant.
Of course.
And you would agree with me that you would want to make sure that there's not even an appearance of a conflict.
I can't necessarily address an appearance. I can address a actual conflict. I can address that we always worked and we always strive to address those sort of things so that we can maintain an objectivity in the investigation. But I really can't combat a appearance of a conflict.
Well, there's several ways that you can look to see if there is an appearance of a conflict or an actual conflict, right? When a lead detective speaks the way you spoke to Mr. Loyd, that's a problem.
It is, very much so.
And you knew before coming in here that you had made statements that were memorialized in the form of video or recordings or reports that supported every one of those statements you made.
Yes, sir.
Now, as part of the investigation in this particular case, the video became extremely important.
In the video of the shooting, yes, sir.
And you would not do anything to distort the events that took place between Lieutenant Clayton and Mr. Loyd.
The video was collected by Sean Williams. It was given to us from the Walmart LPO. In no way were they distorted.
But you ordered that stills be made of the video, did you not?
I did.
And as a matter of fact, you ordered that the first still that was going to be made was when Mr. Loyd already had his gun in his hand and was shooting. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, we know from the video that Mr. Loyd comes from the back behind here and comes through here, correct?
Correct.
And then turns that way, correct?
Correct.
And then turns back around, correct?
Correct.
And the first time we see his gun is when he's turning back around. Isn't that right?
It appears so. He's drawing from his waistband at that point, yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if counsel could announce what he's referring to for the record.
I'm referring to a blow-up of the front area of the Walmart where Mr. Loyd had come out from behind the wall.
Judge, I'm sorry, I don't believe it's been identified as an exhibit or.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. It's defendant's Ed. And so this was the first
Your Honor, it appears counsel is going to show something on the video screen I don't believe is in evidence.
It is not, nor was the exhibit
All right,
that.
let me see the attorneys at the bench.
We were talking about, oh, sorry. Okay. We were talking about 15 stills that you and your department created from the video.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And those stills depict pieces of the actual Walmart video.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, first. I'm showing you what is,
Objection, foundation.
Sustained. Take that down, please.
excuse me?
Take that down.
Bring it down. Unplug your computer for a second. Let me see it. Put it up. I'm showing you what appears to be the 15 stills of that person.
You may.
Sir, are those a fair and accurate depiction of the stills that you prepared?
We'd have to rate, can we open each of them?
Sure. Sure. I think you're in a better position than I am.
Want me to do it?
Yeah. That's one, and then you can go.
Do you need to move
there should
over?
be
You
an
can.
arrow. Like towards this. Like over here, like to.
There it is.
Okay.
Got it.
Got it. And I'll take you through it.
Fine.
Yes. Those are accurate representations of the pictures I submitted.
Judge, may I publish now?
You may.
Just go to one. And so the way these are created was you tracked actually the part that you determined was relevant to you as the beginning of the shooting and went through the shooting slide by slide, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this would be the first one you created, correct?
I don't know if created is the right word. It's their freeze frames from the video.
So that's the first one you freeze framed in the group.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You did not freeze frame the one that would depict Mr. Loyd without a weapon. Is that correct?
There's a number of freeze frames from the video I did not capture.
And that's one of them, Mr.
It is.
Loyd without a weapon.
It is.
And from the beginning of the investigation, you had numerous conversations with witnesses. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And part of the tenor of those conversations was, who shot first?
That question was asked. Yes, sir.
Now, there was one particular individual that was interviewed on the day of the event, and then later on was interviewed at his house, named Ryan Sturby.
Strybey, yes, sir. Strybey, yes, sir.
Sorry, okay. And you interviewed him the second time, correct?
Correct.
Now, it's your estimation that the actual shooting took about 6 minutes. 6 seconds, I'm sorry, 6 seconds.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And as a matter of fact, you documented that in a warrant that you were responsible for. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you began this investigation, you had mentioned that your head crime scene person was already on scene. Your name is Livengood?
Karen Livengood, yes, sir.
And she was the head crime scene person, correct?
She wasn't the supervisor, she was a senior CSI, and she had already arrived on scene.
All right. Now, obviously, you know some about weapons, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, a 9mm, if you're firing 9mm, and the casing is being ejected, where is it coming from and where is it going?
So shell casings are typically ejected out of there. It's a right-hand ejection port. And most gun manufacturers will put the ejection port on the right side of the firearm so that the rounds are not, being a right-handed shooters, being predominant shooters, the shell casings are not ejected into the face of the shooter. So in this case, both firearms involved, Mr. Loyd Smith & Wesson 40 caliber and Lieutenant Clayton Sig Sauer 9mm were both right-hand ejection port.
And not only right-hand ejection, but back by a 45-degree angle.
I'm sorry?
When it's coming out, it's going backwards, not forwards.
We've tested that multiple times. I've stood in the range in a more controlled setting, and it was a very wide range where the shell casings are ejected and where they're landing. So there's a number of different factors on would cause that, but there's not a lot of consistency on where shell casings would land once they're ejected.
Okay. Now, you had an opportunity to view the crime scene, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit D.
Exhibit what, D?
D.
Okay, thank you.
D. Have you seen this before?
I have not. I've seen that, obviously the parking lot, but not that particular scale drawing.
Okay. This is the states, I know the states.
Okay.
Okay. So what we have here is locations where casings are found and what guns they belong to.
Okay.
Okay? So when we're looking at D, E, G, right here, those three right there, those are coming from the 9mm, correct?
Objection, these are facts, not an evidence. The exhibit's not an evidence.
Sustained.
It asks that it be taken down until it's identified or authenticated.
Do you have personal knowledge of where the casings are collected as a lead detective?
Yes.
Okay. Do you need to refer to a report?
My report documents where each of them, and I give an approximation on where the shell casings are picked up. The scaled drawings, the Leica scans and so forth would be a much more accurate representation.
Okay. How many casings were uncovered that belonged to the 9mm?
There were,
Mr. Lenneman,
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
we're having a line of sight problem for one of the jurors, is that correct? The two jurors on the end cannot see what you're doing.
You're not supposed to see this at all, apparently.
All right. Was that the issue? Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. Okay.
So I'm sorry, I did not hear you about how many casings were discovered from the 9mm, which is Lieutenant Clayton's firearm.
yes, there was, I believe, 8 Winchester SXT spent shell casings, 9mm.
Okay. And how many cartridges remained in her gun?
I believe there was 6 remaining in her gun.
You sure it wasn't 7?
I'm sorry, you're right. It was 6 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber.
Okay. So that's 15, correct?
Of
That's 15 total.
the 9,
If you count the ammunition-wise, you have 8 casings that were expelled. You have 7 casings, 6 and 1 in the gun, correct? That's 15.
yes.
Okay. And isn't it true that that gun actually holds 16?
The magazine holds 15, and then there's additional round in the chamber, so the fully loaded 9mm SIG is 16 rounds. Yes, sir.
And that's the way it's supposed to be carried by officers.
Yes, sir.
So, assuming, and we have no reason to believe otherwise, assuming Lieutenant Clayton has 16 in there would be 1 casing missing.
Calls for speculation. Objection.
Overruled. I'll allow him to answer that.
There would be 1 casing missing.
Yes, sir.
Is it your testimony, and I don't think it is, but I just want to make sure, that the location of where the casings fall are not important?
I never said that. It's, you have to put it in context on where the shell casings are. You have to put it in context that there's multiple people, and that's a huge part of securing a crime scene, is that nobody disturbs those shell casings. Oftentimes, it doesn't happen quickly enough. I've seen shell casings kicked by responding officers. I've pulled shell casings out of the tire tread of fire department trucks. So unfortunately, I don't put a whole lot of credence in shell casing placement. So I didn't necessarily, and it was the same in this case.
And so, in this particular case, we saw in the video that there were first responders, police officers, firefighters that went to the scene.
Correct.
And they're basically, their number 1 priority is Lieutenant Clayton. They're not really thinking about the crime scene at that point.
Yes and no. There's, I know Officer Sisk had stated he was basically going back and forth in his head on what should be this first priority, and he decided on Officer Clayton. As far as securing the crime scene, I would say that would be secondary to immediate assistance to Lieutenant Clayton.
And there was also civilians who were walking in that area where the cases were.
It appears so, yes, sir.
Now, it's your belief that Lieutenant Clayton, when she received this information from Ms. Bryant, didn't know about the case?
I can't say it's based on her radio transmissions. I would have to speculate, but I can't say whether for sure if she knew or did not know.
Based on the information you had, it doesn't sound like Lieutenant Clayton was terribly certain of the warrant.
And again, that would be speculation from her radio transmission, but for me to say that what she knew or did not know at the time of her death, I really can't say.
So the evidence really that we have is the radio transmission. That's the best evidence we have
As far as what?
about her knowledge of the case and her reliance on anything but Ms. Bryant?
I would say that the radio transmission is telling in so much as that she's making who she's making contact with. But again, I just can't testify as to what she knew or did not know.
Well, you said it was about 8 minutes after Mr. Loyd fled that you and fellow law enforcement became aware that this Markeith was Markeith Loyd. Is that correct?
That was the first time it was transmitted on the radio, yes, sir.
Now, isn't it true that an officer must keep, if they take their firearm out, keep it at their side unless they feel immediate danger?
The policy says that you should keep it at a low ready position, which is roughly 45 degrees, pointed downwards in a safe position. However, it's up to the individual officer what is a significant threat facing you. If that officer feels the threat has risen to that level of significant, by all means, you can raise that firearm.
So if someone feels it's a threat, it's discretionary for them to raise the firearm?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that could be just on the information they're receiving, like a serious crime.
If you're being informed that there is a significant violent crime in progress, absolutely. It would be just poor police work to not raise your firearm.
Now, there came a time when you became aware, as lead detective, that a projectile was discovered on the other side of the Walmart parking lot, correct?
Yes, I was told by Detective Overfield that he had located a projectile in the parking lot.
And Detective Overview was
Field.
tasked, I'm sorry,
That's Detective Overfield.
Overfield is tasked with collecting that item.
Correct.
You found out about it afterwards, is that right?
I believe CSI Living Good stated that that Shane, Detective Overfield, had located a projectile.
Had you been aware that a projectile was found in that location, would you have made effort to make sure that the location was memorialized, photographs were taken, if measurements were needed, measurements were done? You do all that, correct?
I also relied on Detective Overfield saying that the projectile appeared to be older, that there was corrosion on the projectile, and it didn't appear to be related. I said, he can use, and CSI Living Good as well, can use your best judgment. It didn't appear that the projectile was related to our case.
So you're being told by a fellow detective that it doesn't appear to be part of your case, and you're making a decision on an important event like a police officer shooting, that shouldn't be documented or memorialized.
It was memorialized in so much as that it was documented where it was recorded, that it was submitted to FDLE for testing, so the projectile was compared to firearms that we had on hand.
And it was given to FDLE Ruth, correct?
It was, I believe it went through CSI Living Good, who in turn turned it into firearm examiner Richard Ruth.
Okay. If I can have a moment, Judge?
You may. Thank you. Redirect.
Let me just take this
Take your
down.
time, take your time, no worries.
Thank you, Detective.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Detective, 3 quick things, okay? Number 1, you were asked some questions about the number of 9mm shell casings that were found at the scene. Do you recall being asked those questions?
Yes, sir.
And I believe your testimony was that the P226 Sig Sauer that that Lieutenant Clayton had, if topped off, would hold 16 rounds.
The firearm itself, yes, sir.
The firearm, thank you, sorry. Is it required to top off the round and then put one in the chamber?
And if I could explain,
Yes, please.
so when we go to our range, there's 2 types of ammo. When we normally will carry, if we're on duty, we have duty ammo. Duty ammo is expensive and it tends to damage the metal plates that we shoot at to qualify. So when we go to the range, we download all that ammunition and reload the firearm with what's called frangible ammunition. And frangible ammunition it's a lighter load. The projectile itself disintegrates when it hits the metal plate and it doesn't tear up the plates. When we qualify, we now load our duty ammo back into our firearms. What unfortunately often happens is officers will load their magazines, the 3 15-round magazines, go forward to the line, rack the firearm. That takes 1 round out of the magazine. You now have your short 1 round. And I've seen that in a number of officer-involved shootings where we download the officer's firearm. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon to see that.
And by to see that, you mean that they have chambered a round, taken one out of the magazine, so their firearm is holding a total of 15 rather than 16.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you have any personal knowledge or information about how many rounds were in Lieutenant Clayton's gun on the morning of January 9th?
I do not.
And if she had 15, it would be consistent with that routine occurrence that you just described.
Yes, sir.
The second thing was you were asked some questions about what Lieutenant Clayton knew on the morning of January 9th, and you referred to the radio traffic. Do you recall that conversation?
Yes, sir.
Radio traffic, in that traffic, Lieutenant Clayton mentioned the name of the suspect, correct?
Yes, sir.
She called for an emergency channel, is that right?
That's correct.
She indicated that it was a signal 5, correct? Or
Signal
7.
Signal 17 for a signal 5.
So an attempt to contact a murder suspect,
Yes, sir.
right? Based upon all of those, well, you also interviewed Takesha Bryant, correct?
I'm sorry?
You interviewed Takesha Bryant.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bryant indicated that she spoke to Lieutenant Clayton.
Overruled.
You can answer.
Yes, sir.
Based upon all that, was it your assumption that Lieutenant Clayton knew that Markeith Loyd had a warrant for murder?
Yes, she was told, according to Ms. Bryant's testimony, given a full name, wanted for murder for killing his pregnant girlfriend, and she included also that he was wearing a ballistic vest.
Would that also be consistent with her request for an emergency channel at the front of the Walmart?
Absolutely.
Finally, you were asked some questions about a projectile that was found by Detective Shane Overfield. Do you remember those questions?
Yes, sir.
Is it accurate to say that that incident was not documented?
Correct.
It wasn't documented by CST Live and Good. How was it documented?
It was documented in so much in that Shane did a supplement report, submitted the projectile, which was then submitted to the firearms examiner.
So not only was the projectile collected, it was sent for testing.
Yes.
And the person who collected it wrote a report.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
All right, Detective, you're excused for now, but you remain under subpoena and subject to recall.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
State calls Branden Thornton. I got it. Thanks, Claire.
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Have a seat, sir, and remove your mask, please. All right. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure, Branden William Thornton, Branden. Middle name is William, William. Last name is Thornton, Thornton.
Where are you currently employed, sir?
With the City of Orlando Police Department.
How long have you been a member of the Orlando Police Department?
I was hired on 8/15 of 2001, so 20 years and a couple months.
What is your current role or assignment with the Orlando Police Department?
I'm currently assigned to the North Alpha Evening Shift Patrol, which is a patrol-based function.
Which area of the city of Orlando is north?
The north encompasses basically everything north of Colonial, from the Pine Hills corridor east to Baldwin Park.
Now, what was your assignment with the Orlando Police Department back on January 9th of 2017?
Back then, I worked day shift North Patrol on the A rotation, which encompassed basically Old Winter Garden to John Young to Claire Conacoe, west to Pine Hills Road.
Did you know then Sergeant Debra Clayton back in January of 2017?
I did,
Personally, professionally, or both?
mostly professionally.
What was your professional relationship with her?
I worked for her squad. I was previously assigned to a midnight squad. I was looking for an opportunity to get off of midnights and just had a little conversation with her, and she offered me the opportunity to go to day shift and some advancement once I got there.
At the time of this event on January 9th of 2017, how long had she been your supervisor?
I started on that squad, I believe, in April of 2016, so just shy of a year.
Now, I'm going to take you back to January 9th of 2017. Was Lieutenant Clayton on duty with the Orlando Police Department that day?
Yes, sir, she was.
Was she working in her capacity as a patrol supervisor?
Yes, she was my supervisor that day.
And in that capacity, did she have the authority to make arrests?
Yes, sir, she did.
And is it fair to say that her primary responsibility in that capacity was to ensure that the laws of Florida were enforced?
Yes, sir.
Now, you said you worked the day shift when you went to that unit. What time did the day shift start for you on January 9th?
We started at 6 o'clock in the morning, nice and early.
So as of around 7 a.m., you'd have been working for an hour?
About an hour, yes, sir.
Had there been a briefing that morning?
We almost had briefing almost every single day.
And who leads that, or let me ask a better question. Who led the briefing on January 9th of 2017?
It would have been Sergeant Clayton.
Can you describe that briefing without saying the specifics of what was said?
No, that's nothing, it was almost 5 years ago, so nothing in particular at that time. We would just discuss any problems or any of the things that were addressed in the north or needed to be addressed.
Now, were you scheduled to be on patrol in full police uniform that day?
Yes, sir, I was.
And were you driving a marked patrol car?
I was not driving.
Who was driving?
My recruit at the time?
Were they in a full police uniform?
Yes, sir, he was.
How long had he been working with you, your recruit?
I would have to go back and pull the records, but
Approximately.
a few days maybe?
Okay, so it was a recent thing.
Yes, sir.
Now, while you were on duty that morning, do you recall hearing radio traffic from Lieutenant Clayton at around 7:15 that morning?
Yes, sir.
And where were you physically located when you first heard her come over the radio?
I was down by the area of Colonial and John Young.
How far, again, approximations are fine if you need to, how far were you from, or was that location from the Walmart where she said she was?
If I had to give a rough guesstimation, maybe 3 miles tops, somewhere in there.
Now, I ask you if Lieutenant Clayton came over the radio, did you recognize her voice?
Yes, sir.
What is it that you remember hearing during the transmission?
She said her unit number. She said she was out at Walmart, and she was out with a possible subject that may have had a warrant.
Did she specify the type of warrant?
I don't remember.
What did you do when you heard this initial traffic?
My recruit and I just told him to go ahead and finish up what we were doing and start heading that way.
Now, at some point while you were driving to where Lieutenant Clayton was located, did you hear something that put you on a higher alert?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you hear?
She keyed up on the radio again, and I believe she said something about a foot pursuit, and I thought I heard what I believed to be shots being fired.
Do you remember approximately where you were when you heard the shots?
Yes, we were northbound on John Young, coming up to about WD Judge.
What did you and your trainee do when you heard the shots?
As soon as I heard what I thought I heard, I told headquarters they should give her an emergency channel, and I told him, drive, like, let's go.
Did you eventually arrive at the Walmart parking lot?
We did.
Do you know approximately how long it took you to get there or to arrive once you heard what you believed to be was gunfire?
It felt like forever, but I would say maybe less than a minute.
Now, what was the first thing that you saw when you arrived on scene?
When I got there, I saw her laying on the ground, and I saw 2 officers that were with her.
And who were the officers that were already with her?
It was Officer Shellhorn and Officer Sisk.
Can you describe for us, if I'm standing in front of the Walmart with the store behind me,
Okay.
which direction your patrol car, the one that was driven by your trainee, came in and where you would have been positioned?
If you're coming down John Young and turn left onto Princeton, you turn right into the plaza, you turn right again into the southernmost entrance, which faces the garden center. We would have come down that area, we would have turned left along the front of the store, which is back north, and then turned left again when we saw her, or he stopped short and I got out of the car at that point.
Okay. So you saw the 2 officers with her. What were they doing?
Looked like they were assessing her and getting ready to start first aid.
Did you see, or can you describe what you saw of Lieutenant Clayton's equipment when you first arrived?
It appeared to be that her gun belt was open, so she was laying on her back and our buckles clapped in front, and it appeared that it was open this way, so buckle right and buckle left. I believe her firearm was on the ground next to her, and her vest had been unfastened and had been laid back over the top of her head.
You said her firearm was next to her. Was it within arm's reach of where she was or further away? Can you describe that, please?
It was, without being able to give you an exact measurement, it was within an arm's reach, so 2 feet, maybe 3 feet tops.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness of what's been marked as State's Exhibit X and shown to counsel?
And you said X?
X as in xylophone.
Thank you.
Sergeant Thornton, I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit X. It's a box with some items in it. Could you open up the box and look at the item inside? Do you recognize the item inside?
It's a department-issued SIG firearm.
Does it appear to be the exact same model firearm that Lieutenant Clayton was handling and that you saw next to her body that day?
It would appear so, yes.
All right. So I asked you to describe the equipment. What did you do after you made your initial observations? Did you go to her or did you go somewhere else?
I tried to get some information from the people that were standing over there, a direction of travel, a suspect description, anything that would be helpful for the situation.
Were you able to get any information without saying what was told to you?
I did get some minimal information that I then relayed over our radio to responding units.
Okay, then what did you do?
Instinct and training kicked in. I started my first aid.
Was anyone else assisting you with first aid at the time?
Yes, sir. Officer Shellhorn was.
And what was your role in the first aid?
I initially was doing the breathing, trying to clear her airway of the blood that was in her throat and mouth, and trying to get a chance to get her some oxygen.
Was Lieutenant Clayton still conscious when you arrived?
Yes.
Was she able to speak?
No.
Was she trying to breathe?
She was trying to.
Did you have an opportunity to observe her injuries?
I saw a few.
What injuries did you observe?
It appeared to be that she was bleeding from an area underneath her belly button in the lower abdomen area, and she appeared to have what I believe to be a gunshot wound into her neck or her collarbone area on the left side, I think, or left lower side.
Were you present when fire and rescue arrived?
Yes, sir, I was.
Again, and I'm sure it felt like a long time, but do you know how long approximately it took for them to arrive?
I don't.
Did you continue life-saving efforts until they arrived?
Yes, sir.
Did you eventually drive to the Orlando Regional Medical Center that morning?
Yes, sir.
And why did you go there?
We were directed to head that way, just basically see what was going on.
Who was with you?
I believe I took Lieutenant Lane, the female Lane, with me to the hospital, or I drove her vehicle to the hospital.
Prior to leaving for the hospital, did you have a chance, even if briefly, to look at the crime scene either before or after Lieutenant Clayton was removed from it?
Yes, sir.
Did you see any shell casings?
Yes, sir.
Did you make any effort to ensure that they were not disturbed?
Yes, sir. I believe that the other officer that showed up, we began trying to mark them, or at least cover them up with the little paper from our notebook or business cards.
Were you able to make any even rough determination as to where most of the casings were located?
They were all within the parking curb area from where she was laying back towards the Walmart store.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
Cross?
No questions.
May this witness be excused. State?
He is excused and released, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, officer. You're free to go. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Captain Joseph Carter.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, if you'll have a seat, sir. Are you comfortable removing that mask, or do you want to put on the plastic mask?
This is fine.
Well, you got to take one, you either have to put the plastic
Oh.
mask on or take that one
Okay.
off. Which would you like to do?
Okay, well, I'll do this.
You
I can
good?
take it off?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
you
sir.
can. All right. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Almost said good morning. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good, sir.
Could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Joseph Edward Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R,
Mr. Carter, where are you currently employed?
the Orange County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been a member of the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
31 years.
And what is your current rank with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
I'm a captain,
How long have you been a captain with the Sheriff's Office?
about 6 years, a little over 6 years.
Just briefly, what does it mean to be a captain of the Sheriff's Office? Where does that rank you in the hierarchy of that agency?
In our agency, you move your way up. There's sergeants, lieutenants, captains. There's approximately 26 captains within the sheriff's office, and we answer up to a major. Then there's the chief deputies, an undersheriff, and then to the sheriff. So
Wow.
captains oversee a section
Okay.
or a sector.
Now, what unit do you currently work in?
I'm currently in the Uniform Patrol Division, so I oversee uniformed deputy sheriffs.
And how long have you been in that unit?
Since January of 2018, a little over 3 years.
I'd like to take you back, well, before we go there. Yeah, let's go back. January 9th of 2017, what unit within the Sheriff's Office did you work in at that time?
At that time, I was a captain over the Quality Assurance Section.
Can you briefly tell us what the Quality Assurance Section did or does?
It's an administrative position within the sheriff's office, and I have plainclothes civilians and sworn members, and I have research and development and accreditations within the sheriff's office.
Now, in your day-to-day responsibilities now, as a captain over a sector, do you wear a full police uniform every day, or do you wear what you're wearing now?
No, sir, I wear full police uniform every day.
And the sheriff's office, that's the green with the badge and so on and so forth?
Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to minimize it because you've got stripes and such, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Back when you worked for quality assurance in January of 2017, did you wear a full police uniform or something else?
No, sir, I wore plain clothes, coat and tie.
Similar to what you're wearing today?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention back to Monday morning, January 9th of 2017, a little after 7 a.m. Were you employed with the sheriff's office that day?
Yes, sir.
And what was your role at that time was quality assurance, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nonetheless, you still possess the authority to make arrest.
Yes, sir.
And was it still your primary responsibility to enforce the laws of Florida?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall being involved in an incident on North Pine Hills Road that morning?
Yes, sir.
So when you worked in quality assurance, did the agency provide you with a vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe the vehicle that you were driving back then?
It was a 2016 Ford Explorer. It was not marked. I believe it was light gray or silver. It had a full unmarked, not undercover, unmarked police package, means it has lights, siren, radio, just not the green and white markings.
So all the same capabilities as a marked unit, but it's not marked,
Yes, sir.
all right? Where had you been coming from that morning around 7 a.m.?
I left the house and was coming to work,
What part of the county were you coming from?
coming out of Apopka and southbound on Highway 441.
Now, did something come over the radio that morning that got your attention?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what you heard and why it got your attention?
It was called, we call it a Signal 43, codes and signals. So it's an officer needs help now code from the Orlando Police Department, was put out over all the channels.
Do you recall approximately where you were within Orange County when you heard that code go out?
Yes, sir. I was coming southbound on Highway 441, approximately Overland Road.
Right? Did the code contain additional information regarding a possible suspect and the path of travel?
Not at that time, just the initial call went out for help.
So you heard the initial call. Did you change your direction at any point after the initial call?
Yes, sir, I did.
Tell us where you changed it to and why you did that, please.
The initial Signal 43 call for help was put out at the Walmart at Princeton and John Young Parkway. I know where that is. So normally I go southbound on Pine Hills Road to our main operations building, which is at the corner of John Young Parkway and Highway 50. I heard the signal go out, and I said, no, I'm going to go straight down 441 to John Young Parkway, the fastest way to the Walmart.
Now, initially, did you accelerate?
Say that again, sir?
Did you accelerate?
Yes, sir. I activated my lights and siren in the vehicle.
Lights and siren.
Yes, sir.
As you're driving down 441, did you hear additional information that led you to change your path of travel?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you tell the members of the jury what you heard and what you did in response?
So as I was traveling southbound, you hear the signal go out, they patch two channels. So now that means they patch a Orange County channel and connect it with, I believe, an Orlando channel so we can both hear each other. So once that patch was made, I could hear the channel. Someone spoke up and said a suspect vehicle was now westbound, I believe, on Silver Star. That's when I altered my path.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness to what's been marked as State's Exhibit G and shown to counsel?
You can.
Captain Carter, I'm showing you a diagram or photo, State's Exhibit G. Do you recognize the general area and some of the locations listed on it?
Yes, sir, I do.
And does this map fairly and accurately depict the area where you were operating and have just been describing that day?
Yes, sir, it does.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd ask the court to admit State's Exhibit G as the next numbered exhibit.
Any objection? This will be admitted without objection as states number 7.
Your Honor, may I have permission to publish State 7 and ask Captain Carter to step down and do so?
You may.
Thank you.
Captain, if you'll step down.
Mask on or?
No, you can keep the mask off. We're going to give you a microphone so that the jury can hear you.
All right, now you're going to need to stand over here, Captain, because so they can see you.
Okay.
This laser pointer right here, see it's got a little green, just press the green arrow on the top. There you go. So I'm going to ask you some questions about where you were. So you said you were at the corner of, or near the intersection of 441 and Overland when you got the first transmission. Did I
Yes,
hear you
sir.
right? Show us on the map where 441 and Overland were.
It's up here in the top corner, up here where 441 comes down out of Apopka into the Lockhart and Rosemont area. So up here above 414.
And can you show us on the map where the Walmart store is that you were referencing?
The Walmart is down here at John Young Parkway and Princeton.
Now, show us, please, the initial path of travel that you took when you were headed to the Walmart.
When I initially heard the call, I wanted to come southbound on Highway 441 to John Young Parkway and south on John Young Parkway, being the largest main roads, four-lane divided roads, to get there the quickest.
And now could you show us the path of travel that you took after you got the updated information in the second call?
Once I heard the information that the suspect vehicle was westbound on Silver Star, I altered my path and cut down a side road off of 441. It's called Brownell. You cut Brownell over to Apopka Boulevard, down in Lockhart area to Beggs Road, and Beggs Road takes you to the top of Pine Hills Road, where I turned south on Pine Hills Road.
All right, now, so at this point, you're traveling southbound on what is North Pine Hills Road, is that right?
Yes, sir.
As you're traveling southbound on North Pine Hills Road, did you eventually identify a vehicle that you believed matched the suspect vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you show us on the map and tell us the approximate intersection where you saw the suspect vehicle?
As I travel southbound on Pine Hills Road, there's an intersection of North Lane. It's south of Claire-Conacoy, and North Lane is the intersection. So I was approaching southbound, running lights and sirens, coming up to that intersection.
And what did you see as you approached the intersection?
As I approached the intersection, the light was red. So now I have to navigate the intersection with the stopped traffic running code 3. So lights and siren on. So as I approach the intersection, I move into the center lane, slowly look at both ways, make sure all's clear, come to a complete stop. About the time that I get to the intersection, the light turns green and traffic begins to move.
What did you see when traffic began to move at North Lane?
That's when I saw a light tan over or gray over brown two-door vehicle matching the suspect description traveling northbound on Pine Hills Road.
When you say traveling, did you notice anything about the way the vehicle was moving once the light turned green?
It was stopped at the light. When the light turned green, it took off quickly. It was the first coming north as I'm coming south, trying to navigate the intersection.
What did you do after the light turned green and you saw the vehicle speed off?
When I saw the vehicle take off, I said, that's the vehicle. It matches the description. Two-tone, two-door light over dark vehicle. I said, there it is. That's got to be it. So I hung a U-turn right quick to get behind the vehicle.
Were there any other law enforcement units or officers nearby at that moment?
I do not think so, but I don't know.
That you could see?
No, not that I could see.
All right. After you did the U-turn, were you able to get in behind the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I was.
Was its rate or speed, did it remain constant or did it change?
It was accelerating pretty quickly out of the light.
Right, and where did you see it go?
As the vehicle was going northbound, now I turn around and hang a U-turn. Now I'm going northbound behind the vehicle. It turns into the Royal Oaks Apartments.
Are you familiar with that apartment complex? Which is to say, have you been by that intersection or complex?
Yes, sir.
All right, did you follow the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, you can have a seat, Captain. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now, the Royal Oaks apartment complex, is that in Orange County, Florida?
Yes, sir, it is.
The vehicle, the suspect vehicle turns in. Did you follow it?
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, are your lights still on top of your vehicle? They still flashing?
They are still flat. They're not on top of the vehicle. They're either in the grill or in the visor. So they're not on top inside the
I
building. Yes, they
apologize.
were. Lights and sirens still on.
Your sirens were still on,
Yes, sir.
right? What happened after you made the right into the apartment complex?
The car pulled in and made a quick turn and a stop into one of the alcoves or park outs where the parking spots are for the apartments on the right-hand side.
Did you follow the vehicle into the alcove?
Yes, sir, I did.
It's okay. May I approach with State's Exhibits H and I? They've been shown to council.
You may.
Captain Carter, I'm going to show you two exhibits. The first one is going to be State's Exhibit H, as in Hector. Do you recognize the image depicted in State's H?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what does it depict?
It depicts the Royal Oaks apartment at the time and where the suspect car stopped and where my vehicle was finally stopped.
Those pinpoints, do they accurately depict where your vehicle stopped and the suspect vehicle stopped?
Yes, sir.
In order to ask the court to admit State's Exhibit H as the next numbered exhibit. I believe it's 8.
Any objections? Mr. Linneman, any objection to the exhibit? Any objection? All right. This will be admitted without objection as State's Exhibit number 8.
I'm also going to show you, Captain, State's Exhibit I. It's a larger version or backed out version from the same image. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize particularly pinpoint A as to where you were located approximately when the events that we're about to discuss unfolded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, permission to publish State's Exhibit 8 to the members of the jury?
Granted.
Thank you, ma'am. Do one more, Captain. It's a composite. So while Mr. Linneman is looking at the photographs, you were describing how you pulled in behind the suspect vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What did you start to do?
As a vehicle stopped, I saw him pull in. So I pull in behind him, leaving distance there, and I turned my vehicle at an angle and turned the wheels to give myself cover so I could start to step out and address the suspect.
Were you able to step out of your vehicle?
Not fully.
And why were you not able to step out of your vehicle?
I had the door open, probably had a foot either on the ground or just about on the ground. I could see the suspect standing by his car door, standing up, looking at me. And about the time I started to put some weight and stand up, I heard 2 shots, pop, pop. Saw his hand come up and 2 shots fired at me.
What did you do in response to the shots that were fired?
Got back in the car and backed up a little bit farther and turned the car at a greater angle, more perpendicular to the back of his vehicle.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness to what's been marked as State's Composite J?
You may.
Captain Carter, I'm showing you State's Composite J. It's a composite of 6 photographs. Could you please look at each individually and then let me know when you've had a chance to do that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the images depicted in the 6 photographs, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what do they depict?
They depict the scene where the suspect car came to stop, and I followed the suspect car in.
Are they fair and accurate representations of the things that you identified and saw at the complex when you were shot at on the morning of January 9th, 2017?
Yes, sir.
That was a mouthful, I know. Your Honor, at this time, we'd ask the court to admit stage case.
Any objections? Mr. Lineman, do you have an objection to the exhibit? All right. How many photos are in that?
6, Your Honor.
All right, this will be admitted without objections. It states exhibit number 9. It is a composite exhibit consisting of 6 photographs.
Permission to publish states exhibit 9.
Grant it.
So Captain Carter, I'm going to put some photographs on the screen in front of you. They should come up, should. Can you see the first photograph?
Yes, sir. The apartments.
All right, so is that the approximate location of or the apartment at the approximate location where you pulled in?
Yes, sir, it appears.
I'm now publishing photograph number 2 of State's Exhibit 9. What are we looking at in that photograph, sir?
As you can see in the far end of the photograph, that is a suspect vehicle. Now with the trunk open, the car door open. Car door was open when I pulled up behind it. I believe they opened the trunk later. Crime scene tape up there, and this is my gray, at the time gray Ford Explorer backed out of the alcove or backed up just a little bit there.
Now, where your police vehicle is in that photograph, is that where you reversed to?
Yes, sir, that's where I reversed to and stopped.
In other words, does that photograph fairly and accurately depict where your car came to rest after the shots were fired?
Yes, sir.
All right, it hasn't been moved.
No, sir, not there.
Okay. I want to back up a moment. You said that when you first pulled in behind the vehicle, you were closer than what's depicted in this photograph, right?
Yes, sir. The vehicle would have been on the other side of the yellow tape.
Would it have been lined up parallel?
Yes, sir, more linearly with a slight cant to it and the wheels turned.
Okay. Now, you said something a moment ago I want to go back to, and that is that as you began to get out of your vehicle, the individual in the car was already standing and looking at you.
Yes, sir.
All right, describe that, please. You look up, what do you see?
As I come in, I saw the car had made that little quick turn into the right there. I follow it in, turning the wheel, looking up, and then I see, okay, the car stopped, the door's open. The suspect is standing by the car door out facing me. That's when I'm turning the wheel, trying to get lined up, trying to get ready to address the suspect.
Initially, when the suspect is facing you, could you see a firearm?
I saw his hand at his side. Could I distinctly say there was a firearm in his hand? Not initially. It was happening fast.
All right. When did you first notice the firearm?
When I heard the 2 shots. So his hand came up and I heard 2 shots. And
Is it a fair statement that as you first pulled in, he was standing at attention waiting for you?
yes, sir, that's a true statement.
Can you describe the individual standing next to the car?
Taller, thinner, black male, short to medium, unkept hair, somewhere not young, older than 20, mid-20s, 30s, somewhere in that range.
Were you able to identify any of his clothing?
He was wearing dark clothing.
But that's all you could see,
Yes, sir.
right? So now let's fast forward back again. You have reversed your car and turned your wheels. What do you do next?
At some point in there, either backing up or getting out, I see him take off on a run. And if you look at the photograph, to the left of the door and around the corner of the apartment.
So let's go through the photographs again. I just published number 3 of State's Exhibit 9. Is that a fair depiction of the rear of your vehicle?
Yes, sir, it is.
And the lights are on, is that right?
Yes, sir.
The emergency lights, to be specific.
Yes, sir.
Photograph number 4. We'll come back to that in a moment. You said that, let me see. Can you see where the suspect ran in that photograph?
Yes, sir, you can.
And I'm publishing number 6 of State's Exhibit 9. Can you describe for the jurors where you saw the individual run?
So as you look at the vehicle, on the other side is the driver's door. He left the driver door, and that would be to the east. If you can see in the back, there is yellow crime scene tape in between a wooden fence and the apartment. He ran around that corner of the apartment to the east around the corner.
Did you ever see the suspect after he ran around the corner?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever see him again?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay, so now He takes flight. What's the next thing that you do after making that observation?
Say that again, sir?
The next thing that you did, you're still in your car, you've backed out, and you've seen the suspect take off. What's the next thing that you did?
At that point, I get on the radio, call in for backup and help, say that he shot at me, I'm uninjured, and this is most likely the suspect that we were looking for, and gave the direction that he ran off in.
Were you present when other law enforcement officers arrived on the scene to assist you?
Yes, sir, they did.
Did you ever let or allow anyone to go near the suspect vehicle before or even after that?
Not before they arrived.
Right? After they arrived, did you observe anybody go inside the vehicle and look around?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you eventually have an opportunity to inspect your agency SUV for marks?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what did you find when you did that inspection?
As I was parked there, and I think it was after the point we cleared the car, opened the trunk, made sure there's nobody in there, secured the scene, started to put up crime scene tape. Somebody walked up and said, "Hey, there's a bullet hole in your hubcap." And that's when I turned around and looked and said, "Yes."
So I'm now publishing photograph number 4 of State's Exhibit 9, and now 5 of State's Exhibit 9. Is that the hole you were referring to?
Yes, sir.
Prior to the morning of January 9th of 2017, was that hole there?
No, sir.
And photograph 6, we looked at it in terms of the background, but is that the vehicle that you followed into the apartment complex?
Yes, sir, it is.
You said that you walked up to the vehicle and either you or others opened the trunk to make sure there was nobody inside, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
When you approached the vehicle, did you look for any shell casings or projectiles on the ground? Or did you see any, is a better question.
I think eventually, yes, I did see some shell casings on the ground. And I believe we marked them with a card or something so that when forensics would arrive, they would know where they're located.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Cross?
Doesn't matter. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You said you eventually inspected the area for some casings, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you have
Inspected
an
the area.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Can you please repeat?
You said you looked for some casings,
Yes, sir, I did.
and you said you saw some casings.
Yes.
Isn't it true that only one casing was collected from that area?
I don't know how many casings they collected.
Have you looked at the pictures or read the crime scene reports?
I've referred to it, but not in depth.
Now, you had testified that you saw the vehicle and you were pulling up towards the vehicle and you started to get out, and that's when you said you heard 2 shots.
Yes, sir.
You actually, at that point, ducked behind the console. Isn't that right?
There could have been that, yes, that's very possible.
As soon as you heard the shots, you ducked and began to reverse the vehicle, right?
That's most likely true, yes.
Okay. And you didn't even think that the vehicle had been struck, correct?
At that time, no, I did not hear anything to indicate that the vehicle had been struck.
But certainly later on, you found out that the vehicle had been struck on the passenger side front wheel, correct?
Yes, sir.
Those are all the questions I have.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Captain Carter, over the course of your 31 years, have you ever heard gunfire before?
Yes, sir.
How many times?
Many.
Hundreds?
Yes.
Thousands?
Probably so, yes.
Any doubt that there were shots that were fired at you that day?
No, sir, no doubt.
Did you actually see the gun in the man's hand?
Say that again?
Did you actually see the gun in the man's hand?
Yes, sir. The hand came up, I heard the shots, I looked there, and I saw something in his hand.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
All right, may this witness be excused?
He is excused and released by the state judge.
State defense? All right, thank you, Captain. You are free
Yes,
to
ma'am.
go. Thanks. How are the jurors holding up? Do y'all need a break? You good for one more witness? All right. Call your next witness.
State calls Antoine Thomas.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Have a seat, sir.
I don't see them, no.
You may inquire, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
You're a little soft-spoken, so make sure you lean into that microphone, okay? And when you do, could you please tell us your first name and spell your last name?
Antoine Thomas, Thomas.
Mr. Thomas, in what city do you currently reside?
In Ocoee,
And how long have you lived in the Ocoee or Orlando area?
20 years.
Are you employed?
Yes, sir.
What type of work do you do?
I'm a barber.
You married?
Yes, sir.
And children?
Yes, sir.
Now, you have one prior felony conviction, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention back to Monday morning, January 9th of 2017, at around 7:25 in the morning. Do you remember the events of that day?
Yes, sir.
Now, where were you living back at that time?
Royal Oaks.
Can you tell us a main intersection or road that Royal Oaks was off of?
Pine Hills and North Lane, around there.
Can you
Okay.
speak up a little bit? Just a little. Thank you.
Pine Hills and North Lane.
There we go. How long had you lived at Royal Oaks back then?
Not even a year.
Right? Who else lived there with you?
My wife and the kids.
What were you doing that morning around 7 a.m.?
Going to get coffee,
Right? And what were your plans for that day?
go to work.
Now, the Royal Oaks, is that apartments or what?
It's apartments,
Right? One or two story?
2 stories.
Now, you said you went to get coffee. Do you remember approximately what time it was that you came back from getting coffee?
It was around like 7:10, 7:15.
Right? Did you drive to get coffee?
Yes, sir.
What kind of car were you driving back in January of 2017?
A Volkswagen Passat,
What color was it?
silver.
Now, were you one of the registered owners of that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And how long had you been driving that Volkswagen Passat?
Probably 2 years.
Prior to that day?
Yes, sir.
When you left to get coffee and came back, prior to that, was there any damage to that vehicle whatsoever?
No, sir.
Were all the tires inflated?
Yes, sir.
Everything was running well.
Yes, sir.
Now, When you got back into your apartment complex, did you park?
Yes, sir.
And how did you park?
Back then?
And that was into an actual parking space?
Yes, sir.
All right, now, let's talk a little bit about the Royal Oaks apartment complex. Your Honor, may I approach the witness of what's been marked as State's Exhibit I?
You may.
Mr. Thomas, I'm going to show you a diagram, State's Exhibit I. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize the area that this depicts?
Yes, sir.
And what do you recognize it to be? What area?
Pine Hills, like off of Pine
You
Hills.
need to speak into the mic so we
Off
can
of
hear.
Pine Hills Road.
All right. Do you recognize the apartment complex?
Yes, sir.
And which apartment complex is it?
Royal Oaks.
Do you see a pin mark in a letter that has your apartment or where your apartment was at the time?
Yes, sir.
Which pin mark is it?
The blue one.
The blue one. Okay, now, Royal Oaks Apartments, there was a loop of apartment buildings, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did that loop go all the way around? In other words, could you go in and out different ways, or was there one way in and one way out?
One way in, one way out.
Okay, so you drove in, you backed the car into the space, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you're at your apartment looking out, was there a parking lot right in front of it?
Yes, sir.
Were there spaces on the near side to you?
Yes, sir.
What about on the far side?
Yes, sir.
Were you parked on the near side closest to your apartment or on the far side?
On the near side.
On the near side. All right. Any particular reason why you backed your vehicle in that day?
I just back it in.
Okay. You had your hot coffee?
Yes, sir.
All right. As you were driving into the apartment complex, did you see any individuals, anybody walking around, dogs, anything like that?
No, sir.
Anybody in their vehicles getting ready to start or leave?
It was one person.
All right. Male or female, do you remember?
I think she was a female.
Okay. Was she leaving?
Yes, sir.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach the witness to what's been marked as State K?
Yes.
It's been shown to counsel it's a composite of 3 photographs. Mr. Thomas, could you look at those 3 photographs and tell me if you recognize the images depicted in them?
Yes, sir.
And what do those
Yes, sir.
images depict?
My apartment.
Do they fairly and accurately depict your apartment as it looked back in January of 2017?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And hand it back to me. Your Honor, at this time, we'd ask the court to admit State's Exhibit J as State's 10.
How many photos?
3, Your Honor.
This will be admitted without objection as State's Exhibit Number 10. It is a composite exhibit consisting of 3 photographs.
I misspoke. It's K, not J.
It's K.
I apologize,
K,
Judge.
it's still number 10, composite, 3 photographs.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Permission to publish State's Exhibit 10.
Granted.
All right, Mr. Thomas, there's a screen in front of you, which will let you lean into that microphone, okay? I'm going to put some photographs up on there. I'm publishing number 1 of State's 10. Do you recognize that building?
Yes, sir.
And what is that building?
My apartment.
And that's the apartment you lived in back then, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You see some parking spaces in front?
Yes, sir.
Do you see the space where your Passat was backed in?
Yes, sir.
Which one was it? So we'll do it this way. There's a car on the far left, right?
Yes, sir.
So number 1 is next to the car.
Yes,
Number
sir.
2 is the middle, and number 3 is on the far side. Which one was your car in?
Number 1.
Number 1. So immediately next to that car on the left,
Yes, sir.
right? You park your car. What did you do after you parked?
I got out.
Okay. Where'd you go?
I was going up to my apartment complex.
As you were walking to your apartment, did you hear something?
I heard somebody say, hey.
When you heard it, could you see the person?
No, sir.
Could you tell from the sound whether it was coming from behind you or in front of you or where?
It was coming from the side.
The side, right? Did you look in that direction?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because nobody don't speak to me out there.
You didn't know anybody
So I
there?
didn't pay no attention.
Okay. Where were you, if you can describe using the photograph, when you heard this voice?
I was walking down the walkway.
So from your car up the concrete walkway?
Yes, sir.
All right, and did the sound come, if you're looking at this photograph, from the right or the left?
It was coming from like my right.
You're right. Right? So you said you sort of ignored it. Where did you go? What did you do?
I started walking up to the stairwell.
Right? Did you make it up the stairwell?
I made it to the first one, then I got to the landing.
Right? I'm now publishing photograph number 3. The landing, is that the flat area between the 2 staircases?
Yes, sir.
What happened when you got to the landing?
A guy ran up on me.
All right? Can you describe generally, you said it's a male, was it black, white, or Hispanic?
Black.
Were you able to see his clothing?
Yes, sir.
What was the person wearing?
Had a black shirt on with security on the back of it.
Was he wearing anything on his head, or was his head visible?
Like a skull cap.
Okay. When you say on you, how far from you was he when you saw him?
Right there. Like I was coming up the stairwell. When I got to the landing, he was right there when I walked up there and got to the first landing.
Now, you were on the landing. Where was he standing?
Like right down on the ground.
So he was at ground level and you were on the landing.
Yes, sir.
Did you see anything in that person's hands?
Yes, sir.
What did you see in his hands?
A gun and a magazine in the other hand.
Do you remember which hand had the gun?
The right hand.
Right? Where was the gun pointed?
At my face.
How far from your face was the gun?
It was like right there because he was like so tall.
When you say right there, can you see where I am?
Mm-hmm.
Talking like right here?
Yes, sir.
All right. Could you look down the barrel?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe the firearm for us, please?
It looked like a 45.
Do you know the difference?
It was black.
Okay.
It was a big handgun.
Do you know the difference between a revolver and a semi-automatic?
Yes, sir.
Was it a revolver or a semi-automatic?
It was a semi-automatic.
All right. And you said in his other hand, he had a magazine.
It was a black one.
You sound like you have a little bit of familiarity with firearms.
Yes, sir.
Was the magazine normal size or larger?
It was extended clip.
A what?
Extended clip.
Okay. I think I know what that means, but does that mean the same size
It
or
was
larger?
long.
Long. All right. So you see the man, he puts a gun in your face. Did he say anything to you?
Give me your keys.
Right? Where were your keys in that moment?
In my hand.
Were you scared?
Yes, sir.
What did you do when he said, give me your keys?
I said, are you serious?
Why did you say that?
Because I thought he was robbing me. I didn't think he just wanted my keys.
Right? So what did you do?
I took the keys and I threw them up in the air.
Why did you throw your keys in the air?
Because when I threw them up, because I knew he wasn't going to be able to grab him because he had the gun and the other thing in his hand. So when I threw him up in the air, I took off running to my apartment.
So after you threw the keys, you went up the second set of stairs into your apartment.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever turn around?
No, sir.
You described for us how far the gun was from your face. How far from you was his face?
Like a little bit farther down from close to the top of the stairwell.
So
The landing part of the stairs.
was he any further than you and I are right now?
He probably about right there.
About right here.
Yes, sir.
Right? Was there anything obstructing your view of his face?
No, sir.
Would you agree that you got a very clear view of his face?
Yes, sir.
After you got back to your apartment, did you ever look out the window or try to see what happened to your car?
Nah, I just went on, got up to the apartment. He was like, after he grabbed the keys, he must have went to the car. Because when I ran up and I banged on the door, I went in, it's like, oh, somebody just took our car.
And you were talking to your wife?
Talking to my wife.
What did you do when you went inside?
Called 911.
Right away.
Yes, sir.
Did police eventually arrive?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see which direction or where your car drove off to?
No.
Okay. When the police arrived, did you give them a written statement that morning?
Yes, sir.
Eventually, after some time, was your car returned to you?
Yes, sir.
When it was returned, was there any damage that was not there beforehand?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe the damage that you saw to your vehicle when you got it back?
The bumper and the tires.
What about the bumper and the tire?
The bumper was like off. It wasn't intact. And then tires was flat.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness for what's been marked as State's Exhibit N,
You may.
as in Nancy?
You may.
Mr. Thomas, I'm showing you State's Exhibit N. It's a disc. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Do you
Yes,
see-
sir.
That's okay. Good job. Do you see your initials on there
Yes, sir.
and the date?
Yes, sir.
Did you have an opportunity to look at the video on that disc?
Yes, sir.
Did you recognize the area that the video depicts?
Yes, sir.
What area did it depict generally?
My apartment complex.
And did you see your vehicle in that video?
Yes, sir.
And what does the vehicle do?
Try to go through a fence and went through a backyard.
All right. Thank you, sir. So do the contents of this disc fairly and accurately depict your vehicle on the morning of January 9th?
Yes, sir.
When law enforcement arrived and spoke to you, did they show you a series of photographs in an attempt to get you to identify the individual who put the gun in your face?
Yes, sir.
Now, that first morning, did they show you paper photographs or on a computer?
On a computer.
Right? Were you able to successfully identify the individual that you believe took your car?
Yes, sir.
Did they follow up later on and show you the same photographs on paper?
Yes, sir.
And when they did that, did they allow you to initial and circle the photograph of the person who stuck the gun in your face?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt about who that person was?
No, sir.
Did they read you some instructions prior to showing you the photographs? Do you recall that?
Well, that was almost 5 years ago. They said something to me.
Okay. Now, I wasn't asking if you remembered the specific content.
Okay. But yes, they told me.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what's been marked as State's Exhibit L and shown to counsel?
You may.
Mr. Thomas, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit L. It's 2 pages. Please look at each page. Do you recognize State's Exhibit L?
Yes, sir.
Do you see your handwriting on there?
Yes, sir.
And is that the paper copy of the photographic lineup that was shown to you?
Yes, sir.
Did you circle on that paper the person who put the gun in your face?
Yes, sir.
And did you initial it below?
Yes, sir.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the photo lineup that you filled out for law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd ask the court to admit State's Exhibit L as the next numbered exhibit.
Any objection? All right, this will be admitted without objection as State's Exhibit Number 11. It consists of 2 pages, composite.
Your Honor, permission to publish State's Exhibit 11?
Granted.
I'm now publishing page 1 of State's Exhibit 11. And page 2 of State's Exhibit 11. Now, Mr. Thomas, prior to being shown these photographs, and in fact, prior to the man sticking the gun in your face, had you seen his picture before somewhere?
No, sir.
You hadn't seen it on television?
Oh, I have, yes, I've seen him before. On
Prior to that day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you be certain that you picked the defendant out of the photographic lineup based upon your interaction with him on the morning of January 9th and not the television?
Yes, sir.
And do you see the person in the courtroom here today that put the gun in your face on January 9th?
Yes, sir.
Could you please point in his direction and describe his clothing and hairstyle?
Dreads with a black shirt.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Now, it's your testimony that before this day, you had seen Mr. Loyd, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you knew what he was wanted for,
Yes, sir.
and you recognized his face.
Yes, sir.
And when he approached you at the apartment, he wasn't wearing any disguises, right?
No, sir.
You saw his face.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So despite that, you still said, "Are you serious?"
Yes, sir.
Now, you never told that to the police.
I did tell that to the police.
You gave a statement to the police?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And is it your testimony that you told them that you said, "Are you serious?"
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was it a transcribed statement?
It was, are you serious? Just like I said.
No, but was the statement transcribed?
What do you mean by that?
Was it recorded and typed up?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Isn't it true that you said to, isn't it true that when you got up the steps,
Page
Like-
and line, please, Brian.
well, I'm trying to ask him a question. I'm not impeaching him yet.
What's
I mean, I can give you the line. It's
Yeah.
page 2 at the top.
page
No, that's
2?
the witness, he shown his statement prior to
Yeah,
any impeachment.
you need to lay the predicate for the statement.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Sir, I'm showing your statement, and maybe I'm mistaken, but can you look it over and tell me where it says, "Are you serious?"
It's not on here.
You're sure?
Yes, sir.
Can I approach the witness? So you never told the police in that statement,
I did.
it just wasn't taken down?
If you ain't got it, I guess not.
Okay. Now, when you called 911, you wanted to alert the police that a man who had a gun had taken your car.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you know it's a difference between a man walking up to you saying, "Give me your keys," with a gun in his hand, and him pointing at you. There's a difference between those two, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And isn't it true that he never pointed the gun at you?
He did point the gun at me.
And he actually had to ask you twice to get the keys, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
So he said, "Give me the keys." And according to you, you said, "Are you serious?" and then he said, give me the keys, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions, thank you.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
Is this witness excused?
He is excused and released by the state of
Any
Florida.
objections, Mr. Leonard?
No, no
All
objection,
right.
Judge.
Thank you, sir. You are free to go. Have a good afternoon. You need a minute?
Will we approach, Your Honor?
Sure, come on up. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We have one more witness after that. We'll be in recess.